Yo, 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 what's up, my people, man? I hope y'all can hear me. Please tell me if you can or you can't so I can make adjustments as I need to. Of course, technology, as I always tell you, it's a great friend, but it's a lousy savior. So couldn't get the Rodecaster Pro working like I wanted to, so had to go a little old school, but that's all good. What's happening? Welcome to Tony Briscoe live here, live on Be in the Mix. I'm grateful to be here for another opportunity to show you all what's going on in the community, what's going on in our surroundings, and looking forward to introducing you to our guest tonight, who is this afternoon, should I say, who is no stranger to the BMX family and no stranger to Tony Briscoe. But before I get there, I'd like to say this. Greetings again to you all. Welcome to the Tony Briscoe live show sponsored by Be in the Mix Media Group. I want to share that my direct views or the views of my guests are not an express representation of the thoughts or beliefs of Be in the Mix Media Group or its subsidiaries. So I know sometimes when people come on, they can say something, and in the face of this cancel culture, I want to ensure that everybody knows that. So my intent is to always be respectful for all of my viewers, all of my supporters, and those who are tuning in, but also to ask the questions to get the answers that you all want and you deserve. That could at times cause guests, me as a host, and audience participants to become uncomfortable. But I think we've been comfortable enough in this society where we can go in and mix it up where we need to. So wanted to start with sharing that. Also would say that this is not to be controversial. I hope to create a community and a medium where we can dialogue together and be challenged and encouraged simultaneously. So for that, I am grateful for. And again, if you're tuning in and you can't hear me, somebody please give me a notification because I will not be able to know if you can't hear me or not. So with that being said, before I bring my guest in, when she chimes in, let's talk about the highlights of my week. I will say I had a very long day today, a day that was very intentional. So I'm a part of, I'm a mentor for a part of a diverse leaders fellowship program. This is my second year doing it, and we had that culminating event today. So grateful for those people of color who are taking the charge of leadership and have gone through the cohort. And I'm hoping that our organization will make space for them in that time. This morning was probably the most challenging part of my day, mainly because my place of employment where I work, we're going through the thing that we call ARC, A-R-C, and that is the anti-racist commitment. And so being a part of training with a gentleman by the name of Matthew Kincaid to push us all on what racism is, how race plays a role in our society, specifically in the educational atmosphere, is very challenging. I will not even try to pretend to even have a deep, devoted conversation to that right now. I'm hoping to have him on my show one day. But until then, that was part of my day. I also would like this week has been challenging for a good friend of mine supporting my clubhouse family, and that is the real Alicia Nicole. She lost her dad 3 weeks ago, so made time to meet her while she was here in the Chicago metropolitan area to spend some time with her and show love and support and pray for her family. So Alicia, she is the founder of iHomeGirl, and we stand with you and are praying for you as well. What's taken place since we've last met? Well, we've all witnessed the city, Chicago, once again posturing itself after the death of 13-year-old Adam Toledo. Adam Toledo is a 13-year-old Latino male who at some point had a gun, but he did not have a gun in his possession at the point he was commanded to turn around with his hands up when the police officer fired one shot into this young man's body, which instantly killed him. If you have not seen the video, I'm not going to say I recommend you watch it. It is very gruesome to watch. You get to see what happens when a bullet hits a body and how that body constricts and how sometimes, depending on where they're shot, they have no words, no voice. We literally watch live on TV the life of young Adam Toledo be sucked out of him. What we still haven't seen from that is the Black and Brown coalition that once existed when Harold Washington was in office. So that's something we need to get back to. I'm an avid reader of Chicago Sunday Tribune, and I'll be sharing Sunday Tribune digests in the future that highlights the hidden news of the week. And if you haven't noticed, gas prices in Chicago, it cost me $52 to fill up my little Santa Fe yesterday. Crazy, right? I will remind you that for 18 months, we have had 3 gas tax hikes in Chicago, and that's if I read correctly on illinoispolicy.org. I frequent them often. I take what they say as a grain of salt, only because they seem to be one viewed, but outside of that, still good information. So in the middle of one of the most visceral financial crises in America, our politicians find ways to create a way to break the backs of the middle class, suppress the lower class, while providing tax breaks for the rich. Hey, your vote matters. And as I bring in my guest, the wonderful, wonderful Jurema, I want to start with a couple of quotes that we'll lead into. So as I bring her into the stream, I will read these quotes, and then we will begin our conversation for today. Hey, Jurema.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I just had some tech challenges right before. It was crazy.
That's what happens.
You do the reboot, and then you get the Windows updates. I was like, welcome to the teacher's world, right?
Exactly.
Right before your lesson kicks in, everything goes crazy. But it rebooted. Before we get into our conversation, and I welcome you here, I wanted to start with a couple of quotes. One of them from Josephine Baker. You must get an education. You must go to school, and you must learn to protect yourself. And you must learn to protect yourself with a pen and not the gun. End quote. The second quotes come from Kofi Annan. Education is the great, quote, education is the great equalizer of our time. It gives hope to the hopeless and creates chances for those without, end quote. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the guest today on Tony Briscoe Live, the wonderful educator. And she went viral. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. We're going to wait to talk about the viral piece, okay? We're going to talk about how when you have a heart to do business, that there'll be a way made for you just based off your heart. Sometimes it's not about credentials, which the sister has credentials. So let's not get it twisted in what she does, but just the heart to do for beyond her own household has led her to places and has provided opportunities for her. We're going to get in that. I'm going to let my sister introduce herself. I have right here the CEO and founder of Burst Into Books. Miss Jurema, can you just give the people some insight into who you are? I want you to share some of your background. I want you to share your credentials as an educator and a little bit about what you do, and then we'll get into our dialogue.
Okay. Well, first, thank you for having me, Tony. We definitely go back. So
yes,
he's a part of this story. So I have been in education since 2008. I graduated from Chicago State. I guess we can go before then. I went to Morgan Park High School. I graduated from Chicago State with my undergrad in elementary ed. I've taught everything from kindergarten to high school. I'm currently an educator at Butler College Prep. I have 2 masters. So when I went to school for elementary ed, just working in many of the communities I worked in, I just wanted to always find a way that I can present and give my babies the best. Like I call my students my babies. And so me going back to get my education was just for that reason. How can I make my classroom a place that continues to push them harder? And so I have a master's in educational leadership. So I have my Type 75, so different admin roles I've had. And then also I have a master's in differentiation and instruction because I wanted to learn how I can better educate children of all spectrums. So from our kids with IEPs all the way to our gifted AP students. And currently I'm a doctoral candidate for my degree in curriculum and instruction.
Wait. You working on the doctorate too?
I am. I just finished my coursework and I am getting my committee together. So by next year, this time, I should be Dr. Gorham. So,
all right. So look, for you all who don't have an understanding, and I'm not at that level, but what I do know is that when people are working on their doctorate degrees, they do need support financially, but specifically, they have surveys that they need completed. And so we're going to ask the Be in the Mix community, the Tony Briscoe live fans, that is our sister. We'll keep track on her progress on her doctorate degree, but there's going to come a time, and it may be just for educators, but please, they need the data from surveys, and they need them when they send it out, right? Like, I know some people like to be paid for some of these surveys. I get it. I understand it. Any way we can help with that, help facilitate that, off the bat, I'll commit right now to getting $5 $25 Amazon gift cards to anybody who supports her during this time, right? So that's from Tony Briscoe. That's $250 off the bat that I'm putting up of my own money to help support my sister. She's gonna really need the data in order for her PhD program to be successful. And Jurema, you hold me to that. If I come back and say I ain't got no money, say that ain't my problem.
Take notes, right, guys. I hope it is. Like, no, I mean, we got to record. It's a live recording.
Yes.
Talking about.
Yeah. So congratulations to you. Yeah. Talk to us about the journey of Burst into Books.
Man, so it's been quite a ride. I started Burst into Books 2018. So the fall of 2018, it was really just a concept that me and some other parents talked about, just wanting to get more programming for our children and noticing the lack of it. And so the idea of a book club came to the conversation, and I just got excited about it. I've always been an avid reader. I love reading. And I also understand what reading does for you and how it's able to help you to see beyond your circumstances. And so I was excited for a book club. So we put the word out for it, and we got such a large response for it. And we've been doing book clubs ever since October of 2018. And so our book clubs are for children from 6 months all the way up to high school. And that book club has spiraled into other programming and partnerships and becoming more of like a community school partner when it comes to literacy nights and books and off the story times. And I just really am big about this being a village. You always hear me talk about that whenever I do something, because I believe I can't say I want to help your child and I don't know you as a parent. I don't understand their school system. I don't know what their environment is in their community. I can't say I want to help you when I don't address the other things that are impacting you as well. So that's really what Burst into Books is. Yes, about literacy and helping our kids become better readers, but it's also about them just holistically being supported and the village around them being supported as well. So
great. So I know it can be very subjective, but what do you think Josephine Baker meant when she said in this quote, "And you must learn to protect yourself with a pen and not a gun"? Like, it's this Josephine Baker we're talking about. So we talk about the relevance of the times and to think what we're dealing with now, not just in Chicago. Chicago just gets highlighted for gun violence, but I mean, every city across this nation is dealing with this, right? America has a gun problem. But what do you think she means when she says you must get an education and you must go to school and you must protect yourself, but you have to do it with a pen and not a gun? What does that mean for you and the work that you're doing?
Right away, the power of words. And I think you know better than me as well as a poet and writer that you can change. Anything that I believe really comes in a change of mindset. So we can, in our anger, a lot of times the frustration and violence that we see is because people don't know how to put it in words, right? The trauma, the things I feel, this is my reaction. This is my response. This is my outcry. But words are so powerful. Words can change your point of view about something. I mean, we got poets and writers, just as she's talking about, I think about right away, like a James Baldwin, right?
Absolutely.
His words hit harder than any gun. You know what I mean? And to this day, it has created dialogue that has outlived him. You know what I mean? I think in a lot of ways when we're talking about change, we got to understand the power of our voice. And a lot of times that's the reason why throughout history, that has been something that people have tried to silence, is our voice and our ability to read and write, and us being able to put what we believe down in words. because that's really going to outlive you. That's like that change that's going to go beyond you and go to the next generation. You know what I mean? And so I think it's so important, education. But even when I think about education, it's not traditionally just in school. I just think about access and being able to learn and just know that there is an opportunity. That in itself is powerful, because I think a lot of times if we limit education to just going to school, then we miss that there's lessons all around us. So I guess to go back to that, words are truly powerful. Words have built and destroyed nations.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And so leading into that, we have Kofi Annan, I believe, former Secretary General of the United Nations. I may have said his title wrong, but he was in the leadership for the UN. He says, and I know we've heard this quote before throughout history, our history, that education is the great equalizer of our time. It gives hope to the hopeless and creates chances for those without. As an educator, is education still the great equalizer? And if it is, how then do Black and brown young children break through the barriers that come with that when they're not considered equal?
I think when I think about this, I had a conversation earlier with someone, and he talked about how, Black History Month, for example, and he was talking to a group of students, and he asked them, why do you think that we only have 1 month for Black history? Why don't we have like White History Month? And he said the student response was, well, maybe because we don't have enough to fill up a year, right? And he was like, it was a very innocent response, and it was just enlightening, because I think that is an example of our kids not understanding their history and who they are, and how everything around them has been very much so not created, but designed by people of color. And so I think where the equalizer comes is that the less I know about myself, or the less I know about the people before me, I start to even doubt my power or what I can do. But then when you start being educated about who you are and those who came before you and those around you who are currently doing work, you are built in your mindset and who you view, and your possibilities widen as well. And I think a lot of times when we're trying to get kids to, change their behaviors, it's about the knowledge that they know about themselves. It's different. Like even, during this time at home, I've been introducing my son to like African kings and queens. The fact that he even know that royalty is a possibility in our diaspora changed his mindset about people in general, because he understood that if we only think about kings and queens being in England and not in Africa, that in itself is going to create a narrative about who I see myself in the world. And so I think when we think about being an equalizer, we have to be able to understand that it's not a privilege for certain people to be at the seats. We've always been at seats. If anything, people have tried to take us out of our seats.
Wow.
Because we understand once we know our true power and who we are, that we're going to dominate. We've always dominated. And so the less you know about yourself, the more I'm able to, in some ways, like do a mental suppression and oppression of you,
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, that's a really amazing piece and an amazing answer. What has been some of your struggle with helping? So, and I want to speak from your experience as a high school educator, not as a middle school educator, because I think when you taught grammar school, it gave you a whole different aspect. Like you really get to influence what reading can be at that age. When you started teaching in high school, what was that experience like for you when you're getting kids who were in the 9th grade, but at a 3rd grade reading level? How have you been able to navigate those spaces, and how did that impact your heart first? And then how have you been able to help those students overcome?
Right away, how it impacts your heart is that you, as many people wonder, like, how do you get to the 9th grade and you don't know how to read, right? How do you get to a certain level and you don't know how to read? And I think that what I've learned over time, at first, coming from middle school, I'm like, okay, what was happening in the elementary school? Like, who just passed them along? Who wasn't allowing them to do whatever they need to do? I, in my maturity and growth, have realized that there's so many factors that impact why a child doesn't know how to read. First of all, when I start to meet the household, and that's why I say it's so important that we are working with families all together, just realizing that in some cases, parents need that support. You know what I'm saying? It's parents that don't know how to read. And then you get to the point of, okay, like, how do you get to that point? And I think the biggest thing that it's helped me to realize is that when we talk about schools being partners, like that really means that like it's not about just reporting to parents like, oh, this is what your child is not doing and are doing, but really being a partner with them in education, and also even equipping parents with the strategies in order to help those parents. I thought it would be a different type of relationship being in high school versus elementary school, but it's really the same. It's really about where are those gaps and how can we work together? And I don't know. I think it's just disheartening because when you think about, what got a kid to that point, it's also because of lack of resources, which teachers don't control, right? Admin are, given whatever budget. And so it's just really like, why are certain communities just neglected and others are and have a plethora of resources. And yeah, I think that was my biggest thing, like thinking in high school, oh, they're going to come with this skill set, it's going to be easier. But if anything, it's like, wow, this child for so long has been neglected. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not because parents are neglecting them, because I think that is a not the right way to go about it. Like, well, he can't read because his parents do what they're supposed to do, but it's generational, a lot of the things that happen in a child's household. And so, yeah, I think that's been the biggest thing for me. Like seeing that it's a systematic thing, is not just their seventh grade teacher failed.
Right. It's not a bad kid. It's a kid who had a bad teacher or bad circumstances or bad conditions surrounding them.
Yeah. It's multi-layered. Yeah.
That's good. So why then is education? And when I say education, I'm not necessarily speaking about this formalized, all our kids need to go to college. I believe every kid should try college on their own and decide if it's for them, as opposed to me just saying, you shouldn't try college, because if I go based off my life, we ain't gonna get into that. But it's like college would have never been a part of my future at all. And I'm talking about graduating college at 47 years old, right? Based on my experience, I thought everybody needs to go and experience it for themselves.
Yeah.
And if that's not it, but education, as far as I'm concerned, is still the great equalizer. And maybe equalizer is an overused word, but do you believe that education is still the great equalizer, and why?
I do. And similar to what you just said, I don't think that it only is housed in schools. I think that every child, every adult, every person needs to continue to invest into themselves.
Yes.
And that investment can happen in many forms. It can come through mentorship. It can come through taking a course. Like if you are really, I think the more you become clear about who you are and what you're supposed to do, you're going to make the decisions that'll get you to where you need to be. So for certain skills, for certain professions, to be honest, college doesn't need to be an option. Like you can get to where you need to be without it, but you definitely need to be educated, right? And so
absolutely.
I don't think it has to be tied to a degree. It has to be tied with, like really seeking out that knowledge, but that education can come in many forms. And if college ends up to be one of the ways to get there, maybe you just need to do an associate and then you got what you needed. But I think ultimately it is an equalizer, because if you don't learn more, you only know what you know. And the more you are around others, you are able to get a different perspective of how to do things. If not, you only learn what your family know, what your block know, what your school know.
Right.
You see some other, you like, wow, they do it like that over there. Let me try that out,
Yes, absolutely. I won't, because of privacy, I won't share a name, but I remember being told of the story of a young lady at Butler who did not want to go to college after she graduated. What she wanted to do was open a daycare. And just hearing the conversation that her dad was like, well, that's fine. Well, you still got to get educated. You still got to take some college classes to get this certification, but you probably want to take some business classes too. And how she did all of that, she had her support system in her dad and her mom who helped facilitate that. And then she opened a daycare. And part of the true sign of going back and pouring into that is allowing your child to then go to her daycare of a student that you once educated, literally, right? And so I think that's the way education should be, where we open up these windows of opportunity for our young people to say, okay, that's fine. You don't want to go to college, but you're going to have to pick a trade or something, because you can't just sit around. You don't have to leave the house. I'm not going to put you out, because I think that's just toxic culture that we've inherited over the years. But I'm going to make sure you're educated. You got to work. and you got to be educated. And if you just want to go to school, I'm not even asking you to work. I'm asking you to focus on school the whole time. Yep. But I think that understanding what our kids want to do versus us telling them what they need to do. And I'm the parent of a 15-year-old. I don't have this maxed down perfect. My daughter said something today to me that broke my heart. But she let me know, like, it was real. I know me, you know. And so part of me as a parent educating, I'm learning from her how to be a better parent. That's part of my educational journey, you know, because, you know, young people, they kind of speak their mind. And when the truth hurts, the truth hurts. But we're going to save the parenting conversation for another story. So you believe education is the great equalizer. So tell me how it's been for you, because we must talk about COVID, because it changed all of our worlds, right? How has it been for you parenting, and you're an educator, so you have to teach high school students at the same time making sure your son is doing what he needs to do in class while you're teaching? So how has COVID shifted you in parenting and teaching during COVID virtually?
Yeah, exactly. So this year I actually chose to homeschool my son. So that was different.
Wow.
Yeah. So last year he ended the school year halfway, as we know, like doing virtual at his school. And I was already on, you know, we were already in transition to him going to a new school. I didn't want him to start a new school during COVID, though. I didn't want him starting virtually somewhere. So our schedule for work, all these things just kind of worked itself out. And then my community, like, hey, my mom, she comes to help. I'm like, you know, I'm gonna homeschool him this year. And I think that was the best decision I ever made for him. What has helped me to see is just like another view of education, to be honest. He loves it. He is thriving. It helped me to be able to address a lot of the gaps that he had. You know, my son has always been a really good student as far as grade wise, but I started to see with him being at home, some of the things that he still didn't quite understand, or things that he was able to kind of like, because he was that good kid, he could kind of get past, you know. And I'm like, wait, how you don't know that? You know, let's work on this. And so this year I've really used as like a way of just really just filling in the gaps and exposing him to stuff he really wouldn't have known while he was in school. Like, that's why I said his history class has been learning about African kings and queens, you know. Wow. And him being able to learn about inventors. He loves science. Science has been him looking at documentaries and looking at different animals and him learning about it. You know, it's just been a different experience for him. And so for me, it's made me in some ways be like, man, it's going to be difficult to go back to a traditional setting. And to be honest, I think schools are realizing that kids for over a year have been online. You really have to show purpose of me walking back in this building, because I can still learn. I can still do what I need to do. I don't see the building isn't the gatekeeper of knowledge. So what are you doing in that building that's going to make me come back? I think the same thing is true on the teacher side. I teach freshmen, so it's definitely been a challenge for my students. Many of them in the beginning were not logging on and, you know, had difficulty, but freshman year is difficult, period, coming from elementary to high school. And so when we're in the building, it's a big transition of us getting them prepared, but I could just understand all the more, and I empathize with them doing it online. And so the biggest thing for them is like still having a community. You got to think about it. You're coming into a school, you don't know anybody. You're a freshman. And so I think the biggest thing as an educator is me, yes, having high expectations for my kids, but me also being aware of what's really important right now. It is important that my kids turn in work. It's important that they learn, but I also need to recognize and respect their humanity. And so when my kids are telling me, Ms. Gorham, you know what, we having internet issues. We had to move during this time because of my parents' job. I can't be like, oh, well, you still need to turn that assignment. I think it's just been a very different time period for me as an educator, period, because you're able to see, because they're at home, all the more how those challenges at home can impact their education. And we have some kids that's been coming in the building, so you have seen a switch, them doing more and being more involved. Many of them social, like they were really, really down in school. You know, for them, it's more than just education. It's about my community, and I was just stripped
Yes.
from my community. So
Yes.
I don't want to do that work. I don't feel motivated. And I can't be mad at you, you know, that you don't feel motivated. But I think we have to kind of work together and realize going into this next school year, we dealing with babies that been at home for over a year. It's going to be really hard to get them, one, to not be scared about just COVID and all these things, period.
Yes.
But secondly, I've learned for a whole year online. So why am I coming to a building every day, 5 days a week? What's the purpose of that? You know, so.
Yeah, I'm glad you alluded to that, because I think what happens, and it should happen, right? We should be concerned about the young people who have not done well during virtual learning.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be concerned about that. We have to make it a priority, right? I'm glad that some schools opened it up for those students who were struggling early on to say, hey, I get it's COVID, but we need to make room for these students who are really struggling to get inside the classroom. I'm not going to fault the school system. And when I say the school system, I mean the state of Illinois or ISB or CPS. Like, you didn't want to fail students last year, right? There was no reason to fail them. But was part of the failure still advancing students? Should we have canceled summer this year completely and gone straight through the school year? Like, is that something, you know, that we should have done as educators and as leaders? And it's tough. Like, I don't have the answers to this, but I think one of the things you brought out, Jurema, was how the kids who have been homeschooled during this time, per se, there are some of our young people have actually flourished in the midst of this.
They have.
Yeah. And so then how do we, as a community of educators, then come back to the table and say, you know what? I know we want to open the schools back up. I agree we should open the schools back up, but we've been doing this same way of teaching, like we do the same thing with work schedules, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. If you exempt, then you know all the hours that come with that. And we've been doing the same work system for the economy the same way that we've been doing education. That has really, as I look at over the year, has kind of separated families for a long time.
Yeah.
What is one of the things, at least, that you think could be done to enhance this hybrid model of education as part of the future?
I think that it puts us in a position that we should have been in, and that kids are they take more ownership of their learning, one. And secondly, we're able to really become a school system that's about creating innovators and not just imitators of what they learn in the classroom. One of the main things we're always talking about, like, oh, Chicago, you know, the United States needs to become more competitive, or we need more of this in the workforce and all of that. But our school system is not designed in a way to create CEOs and owners and innovators. Our school system, from the beginning of time, has been created to create factory workers, employees, to have the teacher tell you directions and you follow the directions, for you to be able to stay in a straight line, for you not to get out of hand. We don't create systems in which kids become, you know, independent thinkers and they're able to do research and come back with an answer. And I think if we do a hybrid model, my dream is that we really kind of, what they were already trying to do, like a flipped classroom where you give kids the material, but ahead of time. And when they come to school, it's application and exploration. They're not coming there to learn from you. They're coming there to actually put what they've learned to practice.
Yes.
And create something new. They shouldn't have to read along with you. If you created videos and interactive things, and when they come into the building, you're there as a support and a facilitator of learning, but you're not there to direct what's happening in and out. And I think that because even for me, most of my classes, like, I feel like because of this hybrid, is operated like my online grad classes. Like, I post our assignments, my kids listen to it, they're able to go back and watch the classroom, they got a question. Yeah. But if we were also had that element in the classroom, then I could hold them accountable to doing the readings and to watching the videos. So I think that's the way we really get to change the game. Kids will take at home learning more serious if they know they have to demonstrate it when they come in a school building, versus coming in the school building, well, I didn't read, I didn't write. Well, then you need to do whatever, because that was online. So you could do that while we over here doing our lab or doing our project.
Yes.
Then we need to just flip who directs and who's the gatekeeper of knowledge. The kids are all gatekeepers. They all can get the knowledge. Let's create spaces where they're applying it and creating new things. And so that they're able to see, wow, if I can create this, I can create a job.
Yes.
can do this, I can do that. Instead of feeling like I don't know it because I didn't get the notes. I don't know it because the teacher didn't tell me. No, you know it because you can look it up. You can look up all these other things. You can also look up how to do this math problem. Now let me give you a more challenging one because you already know the basics. So now let's do something else, So
yeah, no, that's really good. That's really good. One more question before we dig into burst into books, because I think not only did we learn about I don't know if inequity or inequalities is the right word. I'll go with inequity for right now. But when we thought our students were the main ones suffering when it comes to technological lapses, right? Like not having internet at home, not having computers in a 1-to-1 ratio. We also learned that we didn't realize the struggle of some of our educators, right? We didn't realize that a lot of our teachers went straight to Starbucks to work because they didn't have internet at home.
Yep.
We didn't realize that they would go to a library to work on their lesson plans, and now the library's closed. And so a lot of the research that they were even able to do, they could have done it at home, but teachers, y'all like books. we'll get into that in a minute. Like y'all like books, right? Like I can tell a teacher, you really should grade that Google Doc. If you're ELA, you really should grade that Google Doc in Google. You're like, no, bro, I need to print out with a red pen so I can do my thing, right? So that's one of the things we learned. How, just in your impact and your learning and your knowledge of the teachers that you work with, within the network and outside of the network, what were some of the things our educators were really struggling with during this time and are struggling with to this day?
Well, first, educators were not taught how to teach virtually. So when you go to school to become an expert in your field, they do not teach you. That's why even if you teach an online course, you go through courses to learn how to do that.
Yes.
Because it's not something you could just do. It's not like just automatically you know how to create the same classroom environment online that you do in person. And so, first of all, at the end of last year, teachers and parents and everybody was frustrated because we were all thrown into a way of teaching that none of us were familiar with, right? Some schools even still had done some, virtual stuff before, so they weren't completely foreign, but teachers still were not ever trained on how to do a classroom online. And so I think the biggest thing is teachers still have not been trained. There are some teachers who have, sought out that, that professional development and, went to, even at our school, we've had people come in and teach us how to use different platforms. That still is not enough time to really create the same environment I do in person online. And so I think the biggest thing is that some teachers start to feel kind of, am I being effective, right? Because I know my job, but I don't know how to tell you through Zoom how to do it. Even for me with both my high learners and those who excel and those who need that that remediation support, it was difficult to do it through the computer. I can't see what you wrote down. I don't know. For some of the kids, they don't turn on the camera. I don't even know if you are hearing what I'm saying.
Right.
So I think it just put so many different barriers for educators to be able to know how do I know what I'm doing is coming across to you? You know what I mean? And so
I do.
So as we go into this new school year, it sounds real, cool and innovative to say, oh, let's do hybrid. But as much as we want to create how kids are going to be able to do that kind of learning, we have to train teachers. I mean,
it's important.
And it's no fault to them. I'm not going to be mad at you. Guess what? That was never a part of you to become a teacher in the first place, unless you were going to become an online teacher. So I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, it was tough. So my degree at NIU is in instructional technology. And the deficit for me was, I don't have an education background. When I say that, I mean, I don't have a teaching background when it comes to education, right? But the instructional technology piece, I still was responsible for learning how to build, just for class, efficient lesson plans, but also how to build out a digital curriculum, how to go into Blackboard, how to use Canvas in order to create these classes, invite people into these classes and walk them through instruction. And so this is when I was saying that college may not be for everybody, but what I was exposed to in college, the knowledge was ridiculous. And I think overall, a lot of educational institutions, and I can't speak for every charter school or network that's out there, but for me, it shows the importance of having an instructional technologist as part of your educational team who can literally build these things out for your entire district.
Yep.
Teach you how to use these things and also get your input as an instructor or as an educator or teacher. Hey, how would you like this feature implemented, as opposed for me just implementing it for you with a default, so I can be malleable in this process and also bring you to the table. So I think you're spot on.
Yeah.
What our teachers had to endure, I don't even have words for. I know what some teachers have shared that I won't repeat, but it was a new world for them. It was like they felt like they were learning all over again.
Yeah.
So if we think the students were stressed, if we think students were stressed out, imagine teachers. Because like you said, I came here and this was my degree. What do you mean teaching virtually? What are you talking about?
Exactly.
Well, it's not new to me. My entire undergrad was all virtual.
Yep.
Most of my associates was virtual. The only thing I didn't do virtual was science and math. I need to be in front of an instructor for those classes. But the rest of my classes were all virtual. And so thank you for sharing your feedback on that. What I want to get into now, let's get back to burst into books. Let's get back to because when you said 6-month-olds, I'm like, wait a minute, what? And then I have to think about my wife and the work there, because we homeschool K through 8 all the way to 8th grade. But I had to think, like, there was stuff.
I need some input.
I'll connect you with the wife. I've been trying to turn her into a consultant, girl. She's been fighting. But I mean, there were things my daughter knew in 2nd grade. She could name every president. She can name every capital. Like she was exposed to so much because of that one-on-one learning, right? What is going on with burst into books? I've been seeing your Facebook feeds. You go live at least, I think, twice or 3 times a week. Like, just talk to the people about burst into books and how you've literally turned reading into something fun and phenomenal.
Thank you. It's been so amazing, this journey, because a lot of the programming that we put together has been a response of just like talking to my parents. And so when we first went into quarantine, I was doing author story times at like the libraries and bookstores and things like that. And because everything closed, I just had people lined up and people who wanted to do things, but how could we do it? And I was actually talking to a parent, and she said, why don't you do like a virtual bedtime story? And I was like, that's actually a really awesome idea. And I started thinking about like, wow, people are at home, they're with their kids. And I just started thinking it would be a cool way to bring the community in. So every Monday when we do bedtime stories, this is literally parents, grandparents, authors, teachers, organizations now. I've had whole organizations, their staff did it. Like, they're volunteering to just come online and read their favorite children's book. And it's been awesome because I wanted to do it. I knew that I couldn't have the capacity to do it every Monday, but it actually opened up an opportunity to connect communities online and to be able to have something fun. And every time someone does, they're like, oh, let me know when I can do it again. It's just a cool opportunity for you to enjoy reading with your family, and also getting kids involved. We've had children read online. I've had, many of the parents do it with their kids. And so that has been cool because you're able to see this as a thing that we do as a family, and we're able to share a book we read in our home, and now we're online to do it. And so I think that has kind of changed some of the perspective for kids, because they're on Facebook, Instagram, they're on that already, but now I'm on there doing reading, so that has kind of changed what they can use these tools for, being able to connect with authors from all over the world.
Yes.
I mean, this year we had, for our book club, we had authors from literally all continents. It was so dope.
Wow, really?
We had an author from one Saturday, like every third Saturday of the month. Majority of our authors are from different cities or countries. Like, we had one Saturday, the author was from Trinidad, and the kids were like, "What? Where is that?" And even that was cool because they're like, "Trinidad, where is that?" And then the next group there, she was from Philly. After that, New York. Then we had, Texas. So them just meeting people, and they all look like them, and they all around the country. And it's like, wow. So what we're doing here is something that people do all around. It's just exposure. It's just, giving them opportunities to see more. During this time, I figured because I can't really get out in the community, this is a perfect time to build partnerships.
Yes.
Reach out to the community. And once we open up, like, having things already in place. And so our building is positioned right in the heart of Roseland. right on 110th in Michigan. I could see Roseland Hospital from my door.
Wow.
Chicago State is where I graduated from, and I'm like, man, it's no reason I'm here and I don't have some connection with the hospital or the WIC office that's on 113th across from Old Fashioned Donuts or from this person. So this has been a lot of my work. Like during this time, how do I really become a community partner? Like, let me go to the hospital and see what is it they need, in their maternal ward. They're like, man, high risk pregnancies are big. It would be helpful if you came here and gave parents books and let them know like the importance. Okay, I can come there and do that at the WIC office, giving them while they come to get food and meeting with their counselor, talking to their parent. Chicago State, again, I reached out to them. I thought about me being in the education department. Wouldn't it be cool if our interns and our tutors were actually ed students at Chicago State? Like it's right down the street. Right. Why not give them real life experience working with kids in their neighborhood? And so this summer we have like 2 or 3 interns that are students from Chicago State. And so I'm just excited because I'm like, man, how do we really get into all the different facets of where families are and where they need support and really show them that it is more than just in the classroom. You know what I mean? We're doing this everywhere. And so Burst Into Books this year, I think for some, they said that, this was definitely a hit and it's been a hit, but I feel like for many people, it's also been a great time of like innovation and just rebirth and just energizing for when we do open up, just being able to do more.
No, that's amazing. And that's awesome. So if people wanted to, like, so I'll give you an example. One brother called me on the phone. He literally dropped off 6 totes of books. So you got to wear a mask, but feel free to come by. I'll get you my info. Like 6, I'm not lying when I say 6 totes of books. So my wife, she just ended class last week. So every Wednesday she teaches a homeschooling group, African American history. She's phenomenal at it. So this brother dropped off 6 totes of books. And I was just like, it's going to be a long summer in this household because we have so much to go through and so much to read. So you're more than welcome to, come by and grab some of these books if you like. How can people, if they want to donate books, how can they get those to you? Like, one, do you have the capacity to receive them? What's some things that they need to do in order to get you these books?
So if you want to donate, you could just reach out to me directly through email or call. So you can email us at burstintobooks@gmail.com. And we can coordinate when we can come and pick them up and be able to either if you want to drop them off at our office or we can come and pick them up. You can also call us at our business line, which is 312-970-9551. And so I'm never turning away books because I always, as much as I get them donated, people come and ask me for books. And so I always want to have them available in a variety. We're doing a community event on the West Side in a couple of weeks. I gave some books to CPS for their teachers. They were trying to do things for classroom, their classroom libraries. And so we connected with the schools around here. So I'm always taking books. Even if they are piled up, they're going to go out. And as soon as they go out, I want to always have a circulation. So they can always email or call us to donate books.
Cool. Excellent. So what grants have you been the recipient of over the last, let's say the last 12 months, 18 months, maybe? What grants have you received? But you know what? No, let me stop playing. Let me get to what I want to talk about. Is it true that Burst Into Books was on the Ellen Show?
I was not on the Ellen Show.
What show was it?
I was on the Drew Barrymore Show.
The Drew Barrymore Show.
Yeah, but you know what? You're like the 3rd person who said that, so I feel like it's coming. I feel like Ellen is coming. She got to be coming because
she just ended her show, so we got to reach out. Oprah, if you listening, like we need to get Ellen to do one more work before she signs off officially. It was Drew Barrymore.
Yeah, Drew Barrymore.
Did you get to meet her, or just you met her virtually?
So I met her virtually, and then the actual interview about it was all done virtually. So they interviewed actually my son because they were doing a Mother's Day special. And so one of her producers reached out to me and was like, hey, can we interview your son to talk about you and your business? And we're going to send you a gift and all this. And I was really shocked because I'm like, how did they learn about me or what I'm doing? Like, I didn't know anything. Like, I didn't, they reached out to me, but it was really cool, one, to hear my son because I think a lot of times when we do this work, to be very transparent, it takes a lot of your time and your energy. And one of the things I'm always battling is like, I never want my son to feel like an afterthought. You know, like I'm doing all these stuff for other people in schools, and he's like, Mom, when we gonna hang out? When we gonna do that? And so a lot of times when we do things, he's always with me because I want him to know that this is our thing. But to hear him articulate for, you know, why I do what I do, I'm like, wow, he understands, you know, because you don't know. You might feel like, I don't know, she always giving books to kids, you know, but to hear him say like,
of course, when you say this, I just shooed my 15-year-old away. Like, can't you see I'm busy? So thanks, Jurema. Now I'm feeling guilty. Thank you.
That's so funny.
Oh man,
but no, it was just awesome, you know, because he really didn't talk to me. They asked him questions, and then she sent me a whole like gift card, and so it was really cool to see that, you know, our work is hitting people like Drew Barrymore, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, that's really good. That's really good. And that's really, I mean, that's what community is all about, right? It's about making these connections in these special places where people acknowledge that and recognize that. And I already know, because when we had him on the radio, I thought like he was going to take over the interview. So he just like, yeah, my mom's doing something, but check me out. I know. So he has his own YouTube channel now.
Yes, he is. And we were talking about last night. He got strategy. He got big things planned.
yeah. He's. I believe he's going to be one of the largest brand ambassadors for young people that's out there. I believe it. He's got the personality and he's got the heart, and it's not something he's not even. It doesn't feel like to me that it's like he's just being him.
He is.
He's not trying to be anything. He's just being himself. And kudos to the parents on that. I mean, like that's 100% real. Yeah. That's 100% real. All right, cool. Well, look, I appreciate your time. Before I let you go, I have to ask this. What is next for Burst Into Books? I want you to talk about anything you got coming up. I know COVID has presented some challenges for the organization, but you know, just tell them again when you're going to be doing the readings at night. You know, bedtime stories. Like, what nights are those? Let's put it out in the atmosphere for the people. Man, let's just talk about that. And then if they want to support you financially, how can they support Burst Into Books financially? Like, let's go.
Yeah, so you can learn about all of the things we do by visiting our website, which is www.burstintobooks.org. You can join our mailing list, and you will still stay up to date to the things we're doing. Some of the big things that we have coming up, we are, like I said, we were a recipient of one of the grants from the city. So our building that's in Roseland should be opening this fall, and I'm super excited about that. We're going to have a whole children's bookstore and community garden and different courses and classes.
Nice.
And, just so many different things happening in that space. My mom's a chef, so we're actually converting one of the spaces to be like cooking classes for kids and families.
Yes, awesome. I'm hoping that's my internet and not her internet, and you can still hear her, everybody. Of course, when I get to the 9th hour, the internet starts tripping. But anyway, thank you, Jurema. If you get a chance, just come back in with us. Okay, there you go. Yeah, it could have been my internet that did it. I'm not sure if it was yours.
I don't know. You know how this tech
it's virtual. It's virtual.
You know, I don't even get, you know, what can we say? But yeah, so our building is the major thing. So join our mailing list at burstintobooks.org. You also, is a tab to give, so you can always donate, and that all of the funds goes towards our programming and our services. And if you want to volunteer, there's a way you can sign up to be a volunteer as well. But yeah, just stay connected. We just have big plans for the future.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I see my brother Gary Dotson out there, 8-time author himself. He is probably one of the most prolific spiritual writers I've ever heard of before. So I'll make a connection with you too, and he can do some of that reading. That is awesome. Look, everybody, I want to thank you for tuning in this week. I will be giving a final thought for today. I want to thank Jurema Gorham for coming in, talking about what's going on with Burst Into Books. Reading is very fundamental. You know, when my cousin took my brother and I in the foster care system, she wanted to make sure you knew how to do 2 things: read and write. and she wanted to make sure you knew how to read. So when you ran away, you didn't have to come back. You just go, which I eventually did. But that's a story for another time. We're not going to deal with that. But she was really big on reading, and my only regret is that she was not alive to see me graduate from college.
Yeah.
That's my only regret. But she knew I had it in me. She knew I had it in me. And I'm grateful for that. Jurema, thank you for hanging out with us. I'm going to check in with you real soon. Thank you again. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the awesome, amazing, soon-to-be Dr. Jurema. We want to wish her well in her PhD program. She's a mom. She's a PhD student. She's got 2 masters. She's an educator. She's homeschooling, and she's teaching, and she's running a business. Y'all know what the saying is, Black woman magic. Thank you, Jurema, for joining us. I appreciate you.
See you. Bye.
You got it. Ladies and gentlemen, that is my sister who puts in a lot of work for our community, the community of Roseland. And so thankful for her. I want to thank you all for tuning in out there to Tony Briscoe Live on Be in the Mix. Please stay tapped in to Be in the Mix. We have a sports show going on. We have our sister Base Love, who interviews quite a bit of artists with the connections that she has in the community. And so, man, we're going to keep this chain moving, keeps things going, and just know that we are here for you. If you want to come on to the show, talk about your business, talk about your product, please DM us in our Be in the Mix inbox. We'll reach out to you and get our interviews going. I am Tony Briscoe. My final thought, and I know I brought up politics as my last bullet point about the gas prices here and our 3-time tax hike that we received over the last 18 months. We all have a role to play in society. All right? As much as we like to point the finger at Democrats, and on occasion, rightfully so, just like Republicans on occasionally, rightfully so, we are equally, as citizens, culpable in their actions. And aside from them, we as citizens hold a responsibility. We are the ones who put politicians in place. Politics isn't easy. And it's easy for us. It's easy for me to sit back and judge from my house. But what are you doing in your community? Are you being Jurema? Are you teaching? Are you educating? Are you making connections with people, with schools, with hospitals, and with grassroots organizations? What are you doing? Before you point a finger, remember, there's always a thumb coming back at you. I am Tony Briscoe, Tony Briscoe Live. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great weekend.